Coming up today, organ failure one by one. First his kidney, then his liver, and then his heart. The complex care that is giving one man more time with his daughters. Good morning, I'm Jessica Lovell, and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. Organ transplants are amazing gifts, and the man you're about to meet received that gift of life twice. But then he learned his heart was also failing, and what's worse, he would not be eligible for a heart transplant. But doctors offered another option that could add years to his life. Tony Mazzeffe is a bit slower these days. Walking can be a challenge.
And getting ready to go back to school.
But there was one walk he simply wasn't going to miss.
I did the father-daughter dance and all that. It wasn't pretty, but I made it down the aisle without a cane or without any assistance.
Truly remarkable, following the mountain of health issues Tony faced, starting with his kidney back in 2007.
They removed the right kidney. I was done until I started having problems with my liver, and that was 2014. And we waffled around for quite a bit, jumping hospitals, trying to get a diagnosis. For some reason, no one could put their finger on it.
Tony was told he would need a liver transplant.
I was yellow, my eyes were yellow. Yeah, I mean, it was obvious it was liver. They started sucking out fluids out of my stomach.
Then it was back to his remaining kidney.
It just really stopped functioning. So that leads me into my kidney transplant. I did dialysis for about 3 years until I got a kidney transplant.
The final blow came while gardening in his yard.
After both those transplants, everything seemed to be pretty good. I was trimming bushes in the backyard and had a widowmaker heart attack.
A heart attack so severe, it would turn out Tony would now need a heart transplant. But due to his existing kidney issues, he was just too sick to get one.
I don't know how many last rites I had. I told her, and she says, you know, you're only giving what you can handle. I said, well, yeah, I think I've overstepped that bound, you know. I've handled more than anybody should have to.
An LVAD, or left ventricular assist device, which is often a bridge to transplant, is now what keeps Tony's heart beating.
I was disappointed, but yet I understood. I probably have a better chance of longevity with the VAD than I would with the transplant.
Tony is grateful for the added years to his life and the chance to walk his other girls down the aisle.
It's my kids. I got to keep going for my kids.
And he is going. And we're so happy to have Tony here with us today, along with heart failure cardiologist Dr. Hirik Shaw and LVAD coordinator Ashley Manning. So we're going to talk with them about the implant that is helping Tony's heart, and we're going to have a little show and tell here in just a moment. But so good to have you all here together. What's it like to have Tony here sitting with us and telling his story?
Yeah, no, it's amazing. He's obviously, we'll go through it, but he's been through a lot. And the fact that he's here, I think, is just a truly remarkable and a testament to his will and fight.
Absolutely. And Ashley, I know when he said it best, he's like, I think I've handled more than most people should have to.
No, you definitely have, but it's definitely, it's paid off. I haven't seen those photos yet from the wedding. It was beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
So Tony, what is the day like? You know, your day to day. What is life like for you right now?
It's, you know, there's pain, obviously, always. I don't walk very well. I don't walk very far. But as far as the maintenance of the equipment itself is pretty simple. It's just, you know, extra weight that I got to carry that I don't need any more weight than I already have.
But you're managing.
Oh, yeah.
So after 2 organ transplants and this heart implant, what are doctors telling you now about your current health status?
Well, you know, I'm not 18 anymore, for one thing, but it's, you know, it is what it is. You know, there's no pill to take. You know, I just, they just tell me to stay as active as I can. And, you know, same old stuff. Watch what you eat, watch the salt.
Right.
You know.
Doctor's orders, all those good things.
Yeah.
So take us back to the kidney failure. Did you ever get an answer on what caused that?
Which one? The first kidney that was removed?
Well, let's do both, yes, but let's start
Okay.
with the first.
So the first one, that was in 2007. That was renal cell carcinoma. So it was a kidney cancer. And they simply removed it, and I went on about my business with no real major problem.
Thinking that the other kidney was healthy.
Sufficient,
Okay.
yeah. Until I started having the liver problems. And I was literally down to days remaining. And Dr. Dunn from KU said, full moon tonight, you're getting a transplant. Sure enough, saved my life.
And you were on dialysis, is that right? For how long?
So when my liver failed and I got the transplant, they thought my remaining liver would come back, and it never did. That's why I was on dialysis. So it struggled through the liver failure as well.
And what caused the liver failure?
I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't know.
All right, let's ask our doctors. Do we know? I mean,
Is Seabrook coming?
Seabrook is not here, Dr. Seabrook, Diane Seabrook, who has been your kidney doctor and your
Yeah.
nephrologist. But how often does that happen where one, we talked about just, organs failing one by one by one. Where is the relation when where does the relation come into it?
Yeah.
Now we're going to get to the heart here in a minute.
Yeah, I mean, organs don't work in independence.
Right.
There is an ecosystem in the body, and if one fails, others respond to it. And that's very common in the organs that have been involved in Tony's case. The liver and the kidney have intricate relationships, where if one fails, the other one usually doesn't do as well. And same with the heart and the kidney, and the heart and the liver.
So they try to compensate for
Exactly.
this. You said they're actually responding inside the body.
Yes,
when one
yeah.
fails.
If the heart isn't doing well, there's going to be effects of the kidney and the liver. If the kidney's not doing well, it's going to be responsive to the heart. So we have all these organ systems, but they all talk to each other.
Sure.
And it really, with 3 organs, having issues, I mean, it was, everything was really, really high risk. And yeah.
So you had your work cut out for you when you met Tony.
Yeah.
So in 2019, you suffered this massive heart attack. What was that like?
Well, I was unconscious. I don't know.
Don't remember.
So yeah, I pretty much crashed. I do contribute that, and I may be wrong, doctor. I contribute the heart failure to a lot on dialysis.
Yeah, and that's very common, is that when you're on dialysis, one of the most common causes of death in patients with kidney failure is actually heart disease. So again, these organs talk to each other, and if your kidneys aren't working, your heart ends up suffering.
Yeah, then you have to take a medication that's going to put stress on other parts of the body.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So it was determined, though, that you were not going to get a heart transplant because you were just too sick. You had another option. So Dr. Shaw, was this a case of Tony just being too sick to handle a heart transplant? How do you make that determination?
Yeah, it's always hard, especially when someone comes in kind of what we call an extremis, where they are, critically ill. And his case was even more difficult when you add, organ transplantation previously, because there's antibodies that we have to keep in play, kidney disease that we have to keep in play, and I think also the fact that he was too sick. And I think one of the benefits of the LVAD therapy is that that's something that we can do immediately. With a heart transplant, there is a waiting period. You have to find the right donor that has the right antibody mix, that has the right kind of makeup, that can actually work in each individual's recipient's body. And sometimes people don't have that time to wait. And the LVAD is an option in many of those patients who are just too critically ill, where you can put the pump in, restore kind of normal blood flow to the rest of their body, and save their lives. And I think that was the case here in this case, is that we're up against a really, really difficult situation, and the safest way to get him a chance to live was to implant the pump.
So let's talk about the LVAD a little bit more, because I know we have an animation explaining what it's doing. So what does exactly an LVAD do? Kind of break it down so somebody like me can understand.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a picture, but I think right there, perfect. So the LVAD is actually implanted. I can maybe... the LVAD is implanted kind of in the bottom part of the heart, the apex of the heart.
Okay.
And our cardiothoracic surgeons do that, so they can either go in front of the chest, or they can create an incision here.
When you say implanted, this
thing.
This large thing, the whole thing?
This whole thing
can I
will.
feel it?
Yeah.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
That feels heavy. Okay.
But this thing will actually go into the heart itself.
Okay.
And then that basically, and there's a pump in here that is actually, this is a HeartMate 3, right? Mm-hmm. This one actually has a kind of a spinning machine that is magnetically levitated, that actually creates force for blood to be kind of sucked into this inflow cannula. And then, it's missing here, but there is a graft here that the blood will go through the pump, and then there's a graft that goes into the aorta, which is your main blood vessel. And basically, this pump would then suck blood from the heart and pump it to the rest of the body.
So are there some patients, when you talk to them, that they would rather have that than a heart transplant? I mean, a heart transplant to somebody's like, oh my gosh, you're breaking me open. Would some people rather have that, or is this just the last option?
Yeah, there are certain patients where the LVAD makes more sense than the heart transplant. I think both, when we're dealing with end-stage heart failure, the risks are significant. And obviously these are two major operations, the heart transplant and the heart pump. And they have their own set of, I wouldn't say problems, maybe challenges that people have learned to overcome. Obviously with the pump, the thing about the pump is that it has to spin. There has to be a power source in order for the pump to work. And so that's the drive line, this thing right here that Tony knows very, very well, that actually will exit outside the body. This whole pump's internal, but this drive line exits out of the abdomen and gets hooked up to a controller and a battery.
Okay, and we're going to talk about the difference because I know this happened twice. This operation happened twice for Tony.
Yeah.
Ashley, please.
Oh, and then I was just going to say is that, but a heart transplant, obviously, you replace the entire heart, but then you're on a lot of medicines to, suppress your immune system, make sure, as you know that as well. And so I think both have its own kind of, challenges that I think are very, very manageable. I think these are still very good options for patients with end-stage heart failure.
You just got to figure out which one is best for the patient.
Exactly. And I think the benefit here is that we do equal amount of LVADs and transplants, and so we have expertise in both. Not a lot of centers have that expertise in both as well as we do, and so we can really tailor the device and the surgery to the individual patient, and I think that's what makes us a strong institution.
Yeah, for sure. Ashley, what do you do? Because you're a coordinator, and you know that what this means to live with this VAD, the battery pack, and all that goes along with it. And I know you had I can give Tony some lessons and how this is all going to go down. Yeah. So, how do you help? Just what is your job, and how do you help people, adjust to their new lifestyle?
Yeah. So we're kind of like the go-to for the patients. We teach them and their family members how to manage the equipment, manage the driveline, meds. We're also, I feel like we provide a lot of emotional support too. I know sometimes doing education, something new like this is a huge lifestyle change. It's can be a lot, can be overwhelming. So we're kind of wear all kinds of hats to help patients with this. And then, post implant, once they're discharged, we're kind of their go-tos on the outpatient side. So if they have any issues, because this pump is so specialized, and this is the only institution in the entire state of Kansas that implants these pumps. So if patients have any issues, they call us for anything.
Thank you for mentioning that. And Tony, I know
Very
you're
accessible.
Well, and I know that you're really grateful to have the LVAD because it's adding years to your life. But you can be honest. What is life like? And I know you were disappointed that you weren't going to qualify for the heart transplant. So, how are you managing every day?
Well, I do what I can. What's difficult is the unknown. So, transplant versus the LVAD. Nobody could say that. Well, that LVAD's going to expire in 2 years, and you're done. Or same with the heart transplant, I would imagine. So I guess my thinking is anytime you introduce anything foreign, be it a heart or a machine, that obviously that's got to shorten your lifespan. I would guess. I don't.
And you had said that you kind of came to terms with it and the fact that you felt like you had a better chance at living, even if you had the heart transplant as an option, better chance of adding more years.
Yes. Well, like the doctor said, that heart that will fit me could be years, which, I still would live with the VAD until, something is found. And the way I understand it, with my condition and my body type and everything else, a heart's going to be very difficult to find.
Sure. Well, we have more to discuss, including the time that Tony's LVAD failed. So if you have any questions, you can use the chat on YouTube or Facebook, or you can email the Medical News Network. Information is right there on your screen. And LVADs, as we know, they're not foolproof. After 3 or 4 years, Tony, your first LVAD failed. You end up getting this new pump, which we're going to distinguish between the two. What do you remember, though, about that moment that happened? Did you know it was failing?
Well, my controller alarmed, and all it said was, call now. that's what I did, and they say get here as soon as possible.
So what happened to the first LVAD?
It's a blood clot.
Okay.
Yeah. So anytime you introduce something foreign to the body, I think, I think this is kind of, I think a lot of different layers to this, and I think very, a testament to the technology advances. But when he was first implanted with your LVAD, what year was that? That was 2019, right?
First part of 2020.
Well, yeah. So his heart pump was called the HVAD, and that pump, was probably the second generation of the LVAD pumps, and that pump had a 5 to 10% thrombosis rate, which means that the pump itself and the parts, because it's a metal parts, that there would be a blood, because of foreign material, blood can clot when it hits metal. There was a blood clot that formed in this inflow cannula right here. Wow. Then basically no blood can go through the LVAD, and that's why he has a controller alarm that there's no flow. And essentially the LVAD could not.
That's a big blood clot.
Yeah.
That's a very large space.
Yeah. And so basically, he was not having blood flow go through his LVAD, and so basically he went back into acute heart failure because the VAD wasn't working anymore. And so because of that, we had to emergently.
Yeah, that's my next question was how much time did you have?
We did it the next day. We sent him to surgery. We explanted this pump, confirmed that there was a clot, and put him onto this new pump, which by the time that he got to that point, there was a new generation of an LVAD called the HeartMate 3. And I think, again, testament to the technology, the HeartMate 3 is honestly, I would say, the Cadillac of all the devices right now. It's gotten so good at the HeartMate 3 that all the other devices now are not operational. That this is the only commercially available device.
This is old, this is new, and then the hardware, how is that different?
Go for it.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, this goes with this. So, we cannot use it anymore. So now he has, it's the same kind of setup, always has the controller and 2 batteries, and then a wall unit to plug in at night. So just a few little differences in that. The weight, I think this one's about 1 pound heavier, but it's the same kind of process. You got to do one at a time. You still have to take care of the drive line.
And where does Tony carry that on his body? You're right there. I know. When I came to your house to visit with you, I know you were showing me. You've got a bunch of stuff under here.
Yeah, he's probably got like one of the conceal and carry type of shirt that has pockets. So we have a lot of patients that wear that.
Can you show it?
Yeah, you can. I got.
Not going on.
You got a lot going on under there.
Yeah.
So there's actually. Oh, okay. So there's actually clothes that help him carry all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is really great because, some patients don't want everyone to see their device. So this is a really nice way to wear it so you don't, no one even knows that you have it.
Thank you
It
for
just
showing
frees
that.
up your hands.
Yeah.
Yes.
So.
Well, and to also just the security of going out, knowing you're not going to be dropping something and it's packed on there tight.
Yeah, and that's really important too, which Tony knows for taking care of the equipment because you don't want to damage the equipment or like that drive line Dr. Shaw was talking about, getting that pole could put you at risk for infection, things like that. So this is a really good option.
So very different functions now because one isn't used at all. But when we look at the X-rays, we're going to show with the left, and the left is the old one, and the right one is the new one. What are we seeing here? Because I can see kind of faintly on the left-hand side. So these don't look a whole lot different.
No, on X-ray itself, it's there's some differences that you can't really tell on the X-ray. The HeartMate 3 is completely magnetically levitated, which you can't see, but the pump itself has basically there's no bearings on it, which means the pump is really not touching other parts of the pump, and so basically that allows the newer pump to really the incidence of pump thrombosis, the kind of the issue that happened in the first pump, has essentially gone down to almost zero with the newer pump. Hard to tell that on the X-ray. Pumps work in the same way. They're implanted in the same location, and they still connect to the aorta in the same way. But there's been few enhancements on this HeartMate 3 that have really, I think, revolutionized LVAD as a game changer for advanced heart failure.
So will Tony have to, third time's a charm? Is he going to have to be in here for a third time, or do we think this one's going to go the distance?
For pump thrombosis, I feel very confident saying that these pumps really, in the post-operative setting, do not
No
clot.
reason to feel they would.
Yeah. And that's been proven in many, many clinical trials. And I think that's the big advantage of that pump versus the older pumps. And because of that, the risk of strokes down, the risk of bleeding is down because you can be a little bit more forgiving on the anticoagulation part of it. And so I think, obviously there are, it's not foolproof, there's still a drive line. There can always still be infection. But I think in terms of how advanced we've become in terms of LVAD technology, I think I'm very, pleased with the device. I hope at some point the device will become fully implantable. I think that's the next, and then, but obviously, a lot smarter engineers are working on that, and I'll be excited to see when that actually comes to fruition.
So after talking, Tony, it's very clear, understatement, that you've spent a lot of time in our hospital, and you shared some photos from your time in rehab, and you're surrounded by a lot of supporters there. A lot of people.
It was my birthday.
Was that your birthday?
Oh, wow.
So many people I know in your corner through all of this, and friends and families, part of the Tony team, Team Tony as you call it. What is Team Tony?
That's family and friends. That's my support group. They a lot of stuff I can't do around the house anymore, so they help out with that.
That's gotta make you feel good to know that you've got this this group around you. And then I want to talk about a special moment, and Ashley, you mentioned it because you had not seen these photos, but I take it you get close to your patients and you hear of big upcoming events that they're trying to make it to, and your daughter's wedding was one of them. So how important was this day for you? It
was huge. I wasn't walking very long before that wedding. I was laid up for 9 weeks, I think, this time with the new VAD. So the whole body kind of turned to mush, like a sponge.
So were you nervous?
I couldn't hold myself up,
Yeah.
No, I wasn't nervous. I knew it was gonna happen with or without me, so I might as well take my shot.
Took your shot.
Made it down the aisle. Everything was good. The daughter dance was a little awkward.
It's okay.
I think she was holding me up more than she
But you made it, and those photos are beautiful.
Amazing, yeah.
It's kind of cool when I would imagine, and Ashley, I know you mentioned it even before we started the program. You're like, oh, that's right, you were telling me about the wedding. What's it like, though, I'm sure when you spend this kind of time with someone, personal time, to see them hit these milestones that they were unsure they would ever do?
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really remarkable, and I'm really excited to be a part of it, and we get to see the whole thing, like, no patients when they're really sick, and then they have surgery, and then that recovery period, and just to see them go from being so sick to putting on a suit and walking their daughter down the aisles, it's really amazing.
Big step.
Yeah.
My first grandson was born while I was in the hospital.
Oh, wow.
So
Bennett.
Lots to live for.
Yeah.
Dr. Shaw, how great is it just sitting here with a patient that, to know that there's options out there? Because we talk about, you go to that first line of defense, is to go on a transplant list can feel very daunting because, like Tony mentioned, we don't know when that's happening. You don't know when that call's coming.
Yeah.
But to know that you can turn to them and have options, and really good ones.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. I think, end-stage heart failure is obviously a very, very mortal disease, and obviously this looks like a lot, and it is a lot, the LVAD, but and we only consider this in the most dire situations when really patients don't have a lot of options. And so I always say, I heard this from one of the previous lectures, that no one wants an LVAD until they need one, and we give it to the people that need it. And the alternative of the LVAD is something that I feel is unacceptable in a lot of situations, which is more palliative hospice type of situation. That's what happens if you don't get an LVAD, because when we make the choice to get an LVAD, we've kind of said your heart is at its end stage.
Yeah.
There is no chance for it to recover, and if we don't do something about it, then you're going to not be here.
Like you said, LVAD doesn't sound good until you look at a picture of someone with an LVAD walking their daughter down the aisle, and
Exactly.
you go, that's why we give that as an option.
And that's why we do it, yes. If we could recover hearts, that would be a different story, but some hearts we can't, and there's options, and like you said, and options that can still have people do things that their goals are, and do things like walk their daughter down the aisle and be part of special moments like that. So
let's get to some questions from our viewers this morning. Question is, Amy wants to know, what is a widowmaker heart attack? We hear that word. What is it? Where did it get to its name?
Yeah, I actually don't know the origin of the widowmaker, but I think so you have 3 arteries in your heart, and the widowmaker is usually the most important artery, I would say. I guess all the arteries are important, but the one that supplies the largest amount of the heart, which is the left anterior descending artery. And very commonly, if that goes down, almost 60 to 70% of your heart ends up becoming impacted by that. And so commonly, that if that were to go down and you don't get treated, patients would pass away. I think hence the widowmaker designation, but it's the largest artery that supplies the heart. So if that goes down, patients are usually very, very sick.
Jill wants to know, what's it like emotionally? We've talked physically about having the LVAD and what that's like, but how have you handled it emotionally?
Well, all in, both transplants and the LVAD, you know, on the transplant, it's emotionally, it's hard to deal with. You know, what makes me so special that, you know, 2 people had to die for me to continue. You know, that's tough to deal with. As far as the heart, you know, that came to the point where, you know, you just got to do what you got to do to get through it and survive with it.
Stuart wants to know, between the kidney, the liver, the 2 LVADs, which hospital stay was the toughest that you remember?
Well, the toughest would probably be, the liver was very, very hard on me. Obviously the VAD implants were tough. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a long stay.
What's your aftercare like? I know you have some appointments today.
Yeah.
Do you meet with nephrology and heart still? Who's on your list?
Oh, yeah. So medicine-wise, the VAD team takes over everything, right? You control all the meds in conjunction with or coordination with the kidney team. I don't see the liver guys much anymore, once a year, which is good. The kidney team I see a little more often, maybe twice a year, just as a maintenance. And these guys I see all the time.
Yeah. A lot.
I'm always here, yeah.
I bet. Ashley, what's the big takeaway from Tony's story?
Just that, you know, there are options out there, especially, you know, when you get to those end stages, and no one wants to meet me. No one wants to meet our team. You know, we come in with all this, it's a lot, it's overwhelming. But, you know, as you can see with Tony, and we have so many other patients, that get that quality of life back. They get to have a life, you know, so it's a really amazing therapy, and I'm just really happy that we've been able to help so many people like Tony.
Tony, what's the takeaway from your story?
Well, you know, I'm kind of a celebrity around here.
I know, I heard.
The 9th floor, you know, I can't walk with, hey, there's Tony.
You can't even walk out in public on the 9th floor without getting recognized.
No. But all in, you know, I mean, what could I say about KU, you know? Look, how many times has my life been saved? I'm very comfortable once I walk in the door.
Good. I like to hear that. And just thank you for just sharing your story with us, letting us come out to your home and share this.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's really nice to have you, and we appreciate you. Dr. Shaw, what's the big takeaway from our conversation today?
Yeah, I think there's many. I mean, this is kind of why we do it, for moments like this, to see our patients at the sickest points that they've been multiple times for you, but then to actually do it. And I think a testament to the team at KU. I think, you know, Ashley says no one wants to meet that team, but I will say that Ashley's team is the lifeblood of our LVAD program. The program would not run without our LVAD coordinators. They are the quarterbacks of and the biggest patient advocates. And so I think we are only a strong program because of our coordinators, because they do so much and they, you know, help out so much, and the patients develop these relationships that are, you know,
you're the big
amazing.
important doctor, and I texted you, and the first thing you said, you're like, ask Ashley.
Yeah. That's usually the response. It's like, what's going on?
Ask this guy.
Ask Ashley. She'll know what's happening.
Absolutely.
And so I think any strong program, you know, we can always put in the LVAD, but it's all about the aftercare afterwards.
Yeah.
And you know, I want to just give a big plug into Ashley and her team, because I think that's what makes us operational and makes us able to have moments like this.
Sure.
You know, what's nice for me is every time I go up to the LVAD floor, you know, I'm seeing the whole team. So today, I don't know who I'm going to see today. Is it you?
Probably.
Probably. Yeah. But, you know, last time I saw Annie, and the next time it could be Dustin. And Same way with the doctors, I need them all.
Yeah. Once you are part of our advanced heart failure team, it really becomes like a team effort. You're not gonna, you get our entire heart failure cardiology team, you get all our surgeons, you get all our coordinators.
Yeah, you're not getting rid of it. You get one, you get all. It's like a family, right?
If people are willing to commit to us, we'll 100% commit that back to them.
Well said. Thank you. Thanks to both of your teams. Again, Tony, thank you for sharing your story.
Thank
Be
you
well.
for having me.
Be very, very well. Thank you to all of our viewers for being with us today. We'll see you back here on Wednesday. Coming up Wednesday on Open Mics with Dr. Stites. Reaching into the heart without cutting open the chest. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Open Mics with Dr. Stites. We explore the new technique that's proving faster, safer, and cheaper than surgery. Plus, a man who barely spent a day in the hospital after getting a new heart valve. That's Wednesday at 8.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.